Hi, this is Shane Dahl. Welcome to The Cut. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Ahaz moment. And so, the Ahaz moment, what I'm referring to is there's going to be a time in every man's life when he comes to a crossroad. He's going to have to make a decision. And that decision is going to be, is he going to follow the Lord? Or is he going to follow his own self, his own judgment, his own intuition? Will he rely on his strength, his intellect, his will, or that of other men? Or will he trust in the Lord his God? King Ahaz, he had one of those moments, and that's what we're going to talk about. Reference point for this discussion, we're going to be looking at three particular areas: Isaiah chapter 7, 2 Kings chapter 16, and 2 Chronicles chapter 28. So let's just go ahead and set the table here, give a little context in the backdrop. So what we got going on is King Ahaz is the king of Judah, but as you may know, the nation of Israel, which was once unified, is now divided into two parts. So this happened after King Solomon, who was David's son, after he reigns at the later years of his life, where King Solomon's got a weakness for the ladies, and so he starts worshiping false gods, and these other women, he has like 700 wives, 300 concubines. And so they led him astray, and he starts worshiping these false gods. And so God's judgment came upon that, and it was that the kingdom would be divided. And so when his son Rehoboam takes the throne, of course, he's no bueno, he's no good. And so what happens is that the kingdom is separated into two parts: Israel in the north, which is Samaria, and then Judah in the south, with the capital of Jerusalem. So King Ahaz is the king of Judah, and this is not a man after God's heart. In fact, it's the opposite. What's going on here, which we pick up in these the 2 Kings and the 2 Chronicles, is that King Ahaz is a bad dude, right? He has not followed the God of his father. He has followed the practice of worshiping the false gods, like his neighbors in Israel have started doing, and these are the Baal worship. These false, they're basically worshiping demons. It's false God worship, and the practices that are involved in this are horrific, right? It's detestable. It says that he had sacrificed his son in the fire. So this is who we're dealing with here, and he is going to get judgment for this. And so we pick this up. I believe it's in 2 Chronicles here, where it's referencing about how he burned sacrifices in the valley of Ben Hinnom, and he sacrificed his children in the fire, and he was engaged in detestable practices the nation the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. And so as a judgment, it says, therefore the Lord his God delivered him into the hands of the king of Aram. So what we got going on here is the king of Aram, King Rezin, he aligns up with the king of Israel, which is King Pekah. And so they join forces, and they decide that they're going to attack Judah, and they do. And it says here in 2 Chronicles that he was given into the hands of the king of Israel, who inflicted heavy casualties on him. In one day, Pekah killed 120,000 soldiers in Judah. Just sit with that for a minute, right? So 120,000. So we literally see here where this aligned armies of the king of Aram and the king of Israel have basically done some serious damage in Judah. And not only did they kill 120,000 soldiers, they took, it says here, the men of Israel took captive from their fellow Israelites. Remember, these are their brothers. They took captive from their fellow Israelites 200,000 wives, sons, and daughters. And they also took a great deal of plunder, which they carried back to Samaria. And so they've been looted, and over 100,000 soldiers killed, and 200,000 wives, sons, and daughters taken back. And so, again, that's in judgment for what King Ahaz, how he has been leading God's people. Now, I want you to remember that, because we picked this up in Isaiah, and we get in chapter 7, where you start getting the account of Isaiah, where when we pick it up there, people are freaked out, right? The remaining people that are in Jerusalem now, because where all the people were taken captive was outside of Jerusalem, they're coming to now attack at Jerusalem. And so God gives a message to Isaiah to go tell Ahaz, it ain't going to happen. Listen, I'm going to protect the city. They will not set foot here. They will not break through, right? So I want you to get this. He is bringing this unbelievable grace and mercy, and God is showing up for a man who has been nothing but evil, nothing but wicked. So when we think about, well, I'm not worthy, or I've done this, or I've done that, and God can never do this, we got to open the book, boys. We got to open the book. When we see what God does for men like Ahaz and King Ahab, like it's God's mercies and His grace. He's always reaching out, right? But it's will that extension, will that be met receptively, or will that hand be hit and rejected? Well, we're going to see what Ahaz does here. But I just keep that in mind, because it's like God's saying to him, listen, I'm going to help you. And so that's what Isaiah comes to tell him. And in that message that he's given him, and this is something that I want you to see, because it really stood out. When he gives him the message that it will not happen, it will not take place, do not be afraid, he gives him this word. He said, if you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. We need to marinate on that, right? He's telling them, listen, I'm going to help you, but now is the time. Now is the time for you to return to me, and I will return to you. It's an opportunity. This is his moment that he can turn back to the Lord. And he's telling them, if you don't stand in this, you're not going to stand at all. That's a powerful statement. It's one that, we're going to come back to here. So King Ahaz has an opportunity, trust in God. Like he says, they're not going to overtake your city. Well, what's he do? Well, he doesn't trust them. Instead, he goes off and he sends a message to the king of Assyria. And basically, this is what he tells them. Hey, I got some silver, I got some gold, I got some treasure I'm going to give you. And I want you to break the treaty that you got already with the king of Aram, and any relationship, any friendship you got going on with Israel. And I want you to, here, basically I'm giving you a bribe, and I want you to go take them out. And the king of Assyria, he's an opportunist. He's like, okay, because he bribes him. And so basically that's exactly what happened. So the king of Assyria comes and he runs roughshod over, the people in Damascus, and the king of Aram is actually killed, and the king of Assyria sets up shop in Damascus, and obviously he subdues Israel. And so it looks like problem solved for old Ahaz. It looks like he didn't need to make that decision to follow the Lord, and that he instead relied on man. He relied on the king of Assyria. Well, we're going to see how that works out. Now, interesting side note to this. So King Ahaz, he goes to Damascus to meet the king of Assyria. And he's obviously wanting to pay him homage and tribute. And he goes there and he sees, while he's there, he sees, and it's a temple. It's a temple to a false god. And while he's there, he looks at this temple and he sketches it out. He draws it out and he sends it back to Jerusalem to his high priest. And he's like, hey, make us one of these. Copy this. And so he does, which tells you, how entirely corrupt, from the high priest to the head of the nation of Judah to the king, that these people are. I mean, and the high priest goes along with it. And so he builds this temple that's been copied from this false god temple, which is basically, this is demon worship. And so not only does he build this, and why is he doing it? Because he's trying to kiss butt to the king of Assyria. He's trying to obviously, smooth up to him. And so they bring it, when he gets back, he's got this new temple built. So what do? They go in, they go into the Lord's house and they break everything down in there and they set up this new temple, and they take pieces of the old temple where they made sacrifices and they repurpose that for divination, and which is witchcraft. Like, it's insane. Like, he's literally, not only did he not listen to God, did he not trust in him? Talk about a slap in the face. Then he goes and relies on this pagan king, and then he goes builds this false altar. So it's not good. Not good at all, right? And I think that there's some lessons here we can pick up, right? So let's get into the meat of this. I think there's something to be said here, guys, with, pride. It rarely begins with just outright rebellion, right? That's not what happens here. It just begins with a little compromise. Just one little compromise. That's what the enemy does. That's what Satan wants. He's not coming full direct. It's more like he's just going to make you make a little concession, make a little compromise. Because that becomes acceptance. That little compromise you make today, that becomes acceptance. And then that acceptance becomes, over time, that becomes worship. And before you know it, you're not trusting in God, you're not following him, you're following yourself. And you're buried deep in pride. And that's exactly what's happened here. And you think about Ahaz, right? Well, he was vulnerable to this. Why? Well, because as king, he's wealthy, he's very successful, he's got the best of everything. And so, I think he got to a place where he thought that, he could do all this himself. And that's the direction that he takes. But, that's when we get to that crossroad, it's like, are you gonna look at that? Because you have to step out into faith, right? We walk by faith, not by sight. And he clearly didn't do that. I think that we, as men, we should be considering, is fear, and isn't that uncertainty, is that what's driving our decisions? Now, what are we compromising, if we're doing that? Are there truths? Are we afraid to make a stand? Is that because we're afraid of getting labeled, afraid of getting canceled? Maybe somebody will call us a hater. Maybe we'll lose that promotion at work. Maybe we don't want to say something on social media because somebody might dislike what we said. And it's like, it's hard to have respect for yourself as a man. And if you don't respect yourself, you're not going to get other people to respect you. If you don't walk out your values, not just talk about them, you got to walk them out, right? So it's a dangerous thing to compromise. It's a very dangerous thing. it did not end well for Ahaz. He did not end his reign in honor and glory whatsoever. And that's a consequence. That's a result of the choices and the decisions that he made. But I think, again, we need to look at this and say, is there an altar that we have quietly built, that instead of worshiping the Lord God, that we're putting our emphasis, our focus, our trust into that? Culture rarely asks you to reject God. It simply asks you to move him over. Every compromise begins with believing that trusting God is more dangerous than disobeying him. Right? Wow. I mean, that's what we see Ahaz doing. But here's the thing. Listen, men, as men of standing, we can choose. We can choose faith over fear. We can choose conviction over comfort, and obedience over popularity, truth over approval. Standing doesn't mean not being afraid, right? We know that courage and standing, it's not that you don't have fear, it's that you're going to stand in it anyways, right? 10 toes down. Standing means refusing to let fear decide who you become. So we talk about being a man of standing, it's standing firm in that in which you say that you are and who that you serve. And so sometimes that can be hard. Sometimes that can be a challenge because we got pressure. And we're really moved to make compromises, but I want to encourage you to look for something in your life where you may be compromising on it. Call it out. Call it out, repent of it, confess to it, and then make your stand. You can do it. Trust in the Lord your God and ask him to give you strength, because he'll do it. He is faithful. So there we go. That's what we got with King Ahaz and the Ahaz moment. And that, men, is the cut. Until next time, God bless. Take care. Talk soon.